Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about Ruby Rose. Man, she just became like the Ray Fisher of the Arrowverse on the CW. Boy, she exposed the crap out of her show. And she didn't do it in no tell-all book. She did it in a tell-all Instagram post. And boy, like the whole proverbial saying, spilling the tea. She didn't spill tea, like man, she like spilled an entire ocean. Like my God, man. Like everybody's been speculating what the heck happened when she left and she didn't say anything. Chances are, since she was probably like under like contract oath not to say anything, and if she did, she probably got in trouble and sued. So a whole year and a half has passed since then, and like so now she's spilled it all, man. I guess many people have been bugging the crap out of her because she did say a long time ago she would tell her side of the story, and boy did she. Like she is literally the Ray Fisher, like I said, and he even chimed in on it too. So yeah, so she mentions a lot, and I mean a lot, talking about how she'll never go back to like Batwoman or the CW or the Arrowverse or none of that. Not even for all the money in the world. You know, people say that, but they always come back. I mean, look at all these wrestlers in WWE. They always come back after fighting events. I mean, Bret Hart, of all people, came back at a point in time, you know? So, never say never. And so, like, she basically just talks about, like, how toxic it was working there. The showrunner, Caroline Dries, is her name? Talking about like how it was unsafe to work there, how many stunt people would get hurt, and like so one stunt double person became a paraplegic and everything. Like this equipment, heavy like construction equipment, fell on that person's head and became paraplegic. And so a lot of people been wondering in this tell-all, is she telling the truth? Or is she merely just like making stuff up? Personally, I think she's telling the truth, man. Like it just this stuff is too detailed not to be like truthful and stuff, you know? I mean, but it's also kind of weird because you think you would hear something about that, but you gotta remember when you're on a show, you sign those contracts to keep your mouth shut. And so that's why a lot of stuff never comes out. Unless you have that one person like Ray Fisher who wants to spill the beans. I'll get into him a little bit later. And, you know, when it comes to shows, you don't really hear about stunt people getting hurt. And you assume because they're professionals, they're okay. But I follow this one stunt woman. And she just recently worked on Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And so, like, she posted pictures of all the bruises that she had on her body. And they were massive bruises. I'm like, holy crap. Like, the stuff I saw happen in the show doesn't even look like that would happen to your body. But it did. And so, like, but she said, but she loves her work. Talking about, oh, the stunt person in life and your bumps and bruises are like your badges of honor and stuff like that. But I'm like, my God, man. Like, if y'all saw the pictures I saw on that woman, you would be, like, shocked. Especially after you see the stunt work you use on the show. Like, it doesn't even seem like it adds up, but it does. And so, like, she was also, like, in the first Wonder Woman movie, I believe, or the Justice League one with the Amazon as one of the stunt people and stuff. And I remember years ago when I used to watch Buffy, I have the DVD. And I like to watch the extras. You know, I haven't watched extras and DVDs in a long time because of all this streaming crap. But, God, I miss it. Anyway, I cleared my throat. They were talking about the stunt people. And they're talking about how they do these incredible stunts like on the show. And when you look at Buffy, the stunt work they do, you really didn't see no place else. Like, they really put their bodies on the line so much. You don't see stunt work like that no more. And so, like, yeah, bumps and bruises come, like, big time when it comes to stunt work. But the thing about stunt work is that Hollywood wants they program into people's brain. They kind of like brainwashing people, and that whole notion of, oh, it comes with the job. That's what you always hear. So that's what people always say. But people don't realize how severe it is until people start posting pictures online of their bruises and their bumps and their gashes and stuff. And in a studio, you never hear about the stunt people getting hurt because they don't want you to know. Similar to what happened in the or unless somebody dies. If somebody dies, and that's something they just can't cover up, like they have to expose that themselves. That's normally the only time you ever hear anything about stunt people. But this has happened like before. Like I remember. Do you remember the original April O'Neil from the very first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, and then she got replaced in the second movie with another actress? I've always wondered for many years, why did they replace her? And so about 20 something years later, she came out with the truth. She basically got fired for sticking up for the stunt people. So what it was is that they would get these stunt double people from like Hong Kong, play like foot soldiers and stuff, and they would get bruised, battered, beat up, and then they would send them back on boats and planes back to Hong Kong and everything and get paid little work. And she was just kind of like, this isn't right how you treating these people. They're human beings and stuff. And they didn't like it. And boom, she got fired and replaced and stuff. So that does happen. Plus, so then she alleges that this guy named Peter Roth, he said that he would make women like steam his pants while he still had them on. What the world kind of stuff is that? And that he kept tabs on her, hired a private investigator after she left Batwoman. Now, when it comes to stuff like that, yeah, people in Hollywood will tend to do some things like that, especially back in like the 70s and 80s and stuff. Or they were like constantly just like look at a person on set to make sure they don't screw up. I remember Kate Mulgrew, she said when she joined the Star Trek Voyager, after they fired the first lady to play Captain Janeway, she said all she remembers that the first day on set when she did her lines and were being recorded, they had these guys in suits just staring her down with their hands crossed to see if she made like one mistake or if she complained one time, then like she'll be fired and stuff. So stuff like that does happen. As for Caroline Dries, the showrunner and creator of the show, will she be fired or step down? Depends on how big of an investigation this goes into. If this goes to court and it shows that this woman allowed all this stuff to happen, then yeah, she will probably step down after this and stuff. Like, a lot of showrunners do that. I remember on American Housewife, there was toxic stuff going on there at ABC. And one of the stars complained. And next thing you know, showrunners, boom, were gone. Just like that. And so, yeah. But those showrunners allegedly were like harassing people. And so, just like that Peter guy, he left. So, Caroline might like get away with this. They probably might reprimand her and stuff like that. As for Greg Bertinelli, like, I'm just tired of that dude. I'm tired of him ruining shows. I'm tired of his fake like representation of like different cultures and stuff like that. Him and the Riverdale dude, does like the Sabrina stuff, they just need to leave because they suck. And there's been some weird stuff about like the Riverdale guy, the showrunner for that, like about how like he's always making the guys take off their shirts and filming them for scenes, not like private stuff, not that. So he doesn't ask them to take off their shirt for private stuff, but he writes a lot of stuff in the show of the characters being in their underwear, which when you watch Riverdale, they're always in their underwear at some weird point in time. And something about like he had like this wrote something about Archie falling in love with this gangster murderer dude from back in the day, and just all kind of like weird stuff. It's just like they hire these weird people, man. Like, I don't get it. Ruby talks about the injury she sustained on the show. Now, the whole back injury, that I heard about through another YouTuber. But the stuff he said, I didn't really know whether or not to believe it or not, only because he was the only person reporting on that. And I do wonder if now he's telling the truth or if it's like something else. But the way he told it kind of made Ruby sounded kind of bad. So this is why I kind of didn't want to really believe it because I wasn't really sure because nobody never reported. But yeah, at some point she did get injured, a huge back injury, some herniated disc, I believe, something like that. And they basically told her like, they patched her back up and talking about she has to go back to work 10 days later, and they threatened to fire everybody on set if she didn't return. And it's just kind of like, would they really fire every single last person on that show if she didn't return? I mean, they could have just replaced her and stuff, or eventually is what they did. And I don't think they will go to that extreme. And it was probably just like a empty threat. Just to like, it's like, oh, you're replaceable and this and that. And oh, you'll be costing all these people their jobs and it'll be your fault. I think that's really what that was. So she kind of took that very seriously and literally. I don't think they were going to fire everybody on the show if she didn't return to work and stuff. But, some studios, you just like never know. But I don't think they would go to that length, spend all that money, But then she talks about how something scratched her face and came close to her eye and almost blinded her. And like, that's like terrible and stuff. And then I think there's something else. Oh, a crew member had like 3rd-degree burns. And then after that, they told her to do like a love scene, and she had no time to process it and had no time to like help her fallen like stunt person like being injured and seeing that person okay. Now that I believe because I remember Power Rangers. A couple of Power Rangers have told the story of how like they became Power Rangers, got injured on set the first week, and still had to film, but they had to work around their injury. The very first Yellow Ranger, well, second technically, but the first one on the TV show, Trini did something to her leg and messed it up. So she was in the cast, and they had to like film her sitting down and everybody around her and cover her leg up. Same thing happened on Lightspeed Rescue. That Pink Ranger hurt her ankle or foot, and they had to like, do some trickery with the camera so you wouldn't like notice and stuff. And so that does happen. Plus in wrestling, a lot of wrestlers have said, they get injured doing them shows and then they have to go backstage, get patched up and take this pain medication and this and that and wrap this up, and they have to go back out and finish the match, and they don't have time to go to like the hospital unless it's a serious injury. Like one person broke her finger and they just like snapped it back in place and wrapped it up, and she had to go back out there and wrestle and stuff. So it does happen. So that's why I believe that. But still, you think of it a 3rd-degree burn, somebody will at least say something like a hospital or something. But like I said, they like to cover things up. And then also, the perfect people to explain what really happened are the co-stars, because they the ones who see everything happen, so they can like validate like what really happened or not. But guess what? They not gonna risk their jobs and their paychecks and their rent money just to like help Ruby out. Because look what happened on like the Justice League movie. Jeff Jones and Josh Whedon made it crappy for everybody who worked there, especially like Gal Gadot. And what happened? Gal kept completely quiet to like her fans and the world, but she went to the executives of the Warner Bros. And she handled it. But Josh Whedon was still being a butthole because that's what he is. But she kept it hidden from the rest of the world. She kept it professionally. She went to the higher ups, you know what I'm saying? But then she decided, well, I had no choice but to spill the beans now, because Ray Fisher decided to put the WB on blast. And when he did that and that investigation happened, they had no choice. They had, like, she told what happened about her and Whedon because people wasn't believing Ray Fisher because Ray was being very vague about the whole thing. Plus, people thought he had an ulterior motive. I still think he has a little bit of an ulterior motive, but I still believe the dude. And if it wasn't for him, Josh Whedon would never got punished. And Josh Whedon needed to be punished, especially all that Buffy stuff, rumors we've heard for years, but nobody never believed, you know? So it's a good thing he exposed that dude. But yeah, I say ulterior motive because like alternative motive, whatever. Because you know, Ray literally said he thought it was gonna be his big old break star role because he just came from theater. Dude never did TV. Dude never did no movies. It was his first thing, and like he took all that abuse thinking it was gonna make him a superstar. And when it didn't make him a superstar, he decided to spill the beans and everything. See, he kept that hidden. And then the whole cast kept that hidden. Ben Affleck has never spoken about this. Jason Momoa has never spoken about the toxic stuff. But he did mention how there is a Snyder cut and there's additional scenes. And of course, he's in them and it'll make the movie better. And so, like, everybody kept their mouth shut and they didn't say not a word. Until like Ray decided, oh, he alleged that the WB tried to keep him silent and everything and tried to lie on him, make him seem like he's difficult. So he spilled some more beans. And then next thing you know, Gal had to tell her side of the story. Josh got fired and all this other stuff. Because there was no way they were going to be able to hide it after that. And so, yeah, I do believe a lot of the stuff that Ruby has said. Now, do I believe she's difficult to work with? I don't know, probably, yeah. I mean, because that's something I've always wondered. Like, the cast and crew, the characters, on the actors and actresses on the show, they normally post pictures of themselves on their Instagram and stuff, but every now and then they do post pictures of the cast. And they look like they're all getting along. But one thing I never noticed, well, one thing I never noticed that, like, they never take pictures with Ruby. In season 1, I never saw not one single picture of her on their Instagram. Never. But now, since the new Batwoman is there, they always take pictures with her and stuff. And so that was always kind of weird. And it was like, you know, I followed the woman named the Alice lady, Rachel, and she would take pictures with other crew members and stuff. But never Ruby. Now, I'm not saying that they had a falling out with Ruby, but it was just always kind of strange, you know what I'm saying? Like, you think they'll post one picture with the leading star. And so, this was also very shocking when she called out certain cast members by names. Like, the dude who plays Luke, I think his name Colin or something like that. She said he's basically a diva. He's arrogant, he's rude, he shows up late. I don't know the first thing about that man. Like, I've never bothered to research him. I've never heard anything bad. He promotes the show a lot, I know, especially now since he's Batwing. And I used to see him take pictures a lot with the cast and everything, so I assumed everything was cool. But then, like I said before, I've noticed him and her never take pictures together. Never took a picture together that I saw online, my own two eyes, you know? And now this makes sense. Because, okay, Ruby, let's face it now, she is not the world's greatest actress. There were so many scenes in Batwoman that she just butchered because she doesn't know how to act, you know? And so, like, one thing I noticed is that her best scenes were with the Luke Fox character, especially when they do like their banter back and forth and they get into arguments and stuff, or they're just being friendly and stuff. It was too real not to be like acting, you know? Now I see why, because those were her best scenes, period. And now it makes sense. There's a good chance them two just never got along. I don't think they never did, really. And so then there's the whole Dougherty Scott thing. You want to know something about Dougherty Scott? I don't know anything about him either, but he was supposed to be Wolverine in the Fox X-Men movies, but I think he turned it down for one or two roles. It was either Mission Impossible or Desperate Housewives. Now, he was in both, but I don't know which one he turned it down for. Boy, I bet you he's kicking himself now. But allegedly, he would like yell at some of the women on like the set and everything. I've never heard anything about him. It's possible, you know what I'm saying? That he did that. A lot of stars do that, and but that don't mean it's okay. And I did always kind of wonder, why did he leave all of a sudden at the towards the end of season 2? And the way he left the show, it was just so like out of nowhere, out of the blue. I'm just like, that wasn't written properly. Now we know why. and, and so the whole thing with him and Mary, I'm like, hey, they're building up a whole lot more with him and Mary. And Mary has her best scenes with him. So like, why is he gone all of a sudden? And so yeah, that probably has something to do with it. Then the whole COVID thing and how they had to shut down and how they didn't want to shut down and they was the only CW show not to shut down during it. And I agree with her, man. Like that's when the thing first came out and people were like just getting sick and dying and they didn't want to shut things down because I hear from so many different shows on the CW they have a hectic filming schedule. Like they work through it's not as bad as Power Rangers. They worked on Power Rangers people like 16 hours a day, and they did about 3 shows in one day, and it was hectic. And but yeah, it was like that. And so like, um, they just didn't want to shut down because they were just being arrogant and wanted to push things up. Because they spent a lot of money on that show. That's one reason why, like, they had it for a second. Like, they should have ended the show the moment she left, but they didn't want to because they put so much money into it. And it's just like all these revelations are like now coming out and stuff. And so, like, man, like, it's just, it finally is coming out. And I truly do believe her, you know what I'm saying, to a certain degree and stuff. And I remember a long time ago, I heard about like her, because like hey, this is one thing I talked about on my channel before when I was complaining about Batwoman, was like how the costume changed all of a sudden and then changed back. Because like I was saying, like in season 2, how her neck piece changed. Like in the beginning, she had like a neck, like fully costume neck up. Then all of a sudden there was like a cut, and it was missing the neck piece and stuff. And I always wondered. And then of course when Ryan took over as Batwoman, the neck piece is all of a sudden back. And I'm just like, that was kind of weird. And it's like originally they kept saying like, oh, it was some kind of like allergic reaction, and that's why they had to get away from, or they had to cut the neck piece out. But the whole costume is made up of 2 materials: fabric, like spandex, cotton, and that rubbery material. So it's kind of like the spandex material is all over her body. So why wasn't she allergic in those areas other than just her neck? Like, you know what I'm saying? And if she had problems in her back, that could mean something, Because when you take off, like, because I have masks, like Halloween masks, and when you take them off, yeah, you hunching your shoulders up, and that like affects your back. And when you have like pains in your shoulder, it hurts to lift your arms a certain way. So yeah, man, the WB and their cover-ups and stuff, man, it's just like insane. Speaking of cover-ups, now I mentioned before the whole Ray Fisher thing, how they tried to cover all that up, and they were going to keep Jeff Jones and Josh Whedon, but then more of the investigation and more of Ray Fisher spilling like his beans and stuff, they decided somebody had to be punished, and there's no way to get away from that. They not gonna touch Jeff Jones. Like the showrunner on Batwoman, she might just get fired because of this. I have that feeling. But then again, you never know. Because Jeff Jones is still working. But Jeff Jones does more stuff with the comic books and stuff. But the WB, they basically try to cover that up. But I tell you this, if Ruby can prove like all this stuff happened, and she can prove that dude had her follow, oh boy, some people are gonna probably lose more than just their jobs. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.